Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my friends at Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project
Season
can
two
be
of
confusing
Conversations.
and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. They have an instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free. They have 24-hour customer service, and Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. You can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials, and the company has also printed many successful Kickstarter campaigns. And a bunch of the people who actually use Mixum have been on this show in the past season and a half. So obviously, you can speak to a bunch of people, and that's something that's awesome about them. And they also offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter and not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now, they're actually running a really cool promotion where you can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get 5% off your very first order. That's Mixum, Mixam.com. Type again, my name, Andrew Davis, into the message tab and get a 5% discount on your first order because every dollar counts when you're running a Kickstarter. So obviously, I got somebody very cool today, and it's Larry Higgins. And I've been wanting to do this one for a while now. So welcome to the show, man.
Man, you said a lot there in that intro. Holy shit. Mixum, first I didn't know you were sponsored by Mixum. That's cool. I hear lots of great things about Mixum. Mixum was one of the companies that was obviously, we were looking at maybe possibly to print Nyobi. We ended up going with someone different, but I mean, Mixum was right up there. In fact, Mixum does some options that, current company I don't think offers. So, yeah, Mixum, way to go.
So I'm very happy because they're the ones who are actually making the rest of this season 2 happen the last 4 months, and the first 8 months of season 3 is happening because of them. So obviously, it's super cool for those who are interested in that. And then obviously, though, I want to talk about Nyobi because this is an awesome, book, and I love the story, and I've read parts of it. And so what is the basic premise of it? Because that's what I think people want to know, and I think everybody knows this book more or less for a lot of reasons. But for those who don't, what is going on with this book?
Wow, man, I don't know about everyone knowing about this book. That'd be cool if they did. We certainly would love that. But I'll tell you, Nyobi is started off as just like a passion project. About 7 years ago, it was like me, trying to draw comics and horrible artists, and coming to the realization after 20 years of trying to draw, I was never going to be able to draw. And I'm like, but I still would love to do something in comics, at some day. And this is when my love for comics sort of came back, because I was out of comics for a while. I was I'm 46 years old. I was collecting comics in the mid to late 80s and well into the early 90s when the big boom happened. Big fan of guys like Chris Claremont and Arthur Adams, and then sort of moving up into the Image founders. A lot of X-Men, a lot of Spider-Man, a lot of hot, sexy Image comics, that sort of stuff. And then the bubble sort of burst. Superman died, Superman came back, things got oversaturated, overdone, and I ended up selling the comic book collection for essentially pennies on the dollar, just to have party money. You know what I mean? I was at that stage in my life. Now I'm like, in my 20s and stuff, and I'm running wild and running loose, and I was having fun. And then I walk into a comic shop back in 2008, and I'm playing Magic the Gathering. I'm still doing some Magic the Gathering tournaments, and I walk by the shelf and I see a new run of New Mutants, right? I think it's volume 3. And it had, of course, my favorite all-time character on there, which, it's a big inspiration in many ways to Nyobi, which was Magic. Ileana Rasputin, the young sister of Colossus, the queen of Limbo. And I'm like, I got to have this. And it's like, fuck. I bought a comic book again, and now the bug has hit me once again, right? Next thing you know, I'm buying Catwoman, and I'm buying back Issues of Witchblade, and I'm getting Red Sonja now, and I'm just checking out the X-Men again, and just, you know what I mean? I was like, then I'm full-fledged into it. Then 2011 rolls around, and conventions are starting to become a big thing in my area. We're starting to have a couple of Comic Cons, and stuff like that, you know. And I'm going to these Comic Cons, and at this point, I still had no ambition of making a comic book, but I was like, man, I was really big back into the hobby, you know. And I discovered this place, Andrew, this magical, wonderful place called Artist Alley. And in Artist Alley, there are talents that run up and down the road that you would not believe, from people you never heard of that are simply locals, all the way up to big names, man, doing commissions. And the thing with them was they were always drawing characters that were well known. You know, people would like want Harley Quinn, people would want Deadpool. Hey, can you draw me Batman? You know, stuff like that, right? And I'm like, I'm not going to have them draw that, but I want something cool drawn. And I start showing them pictures of Nyobi. Like, can you draw this? You know, this is my character. Can you draw her for me? Not even knowing if people would be willing to do it, because I didn't know at that time how artists felt about drawing, you know, properties that were essentially creator owned, or at the time this wasn't even a property. It was just, you know, my role-playing game character from Heroes Unlimited. You know what I mean? But they were doing it. Yeah, sure, no problem, right? You know, you know, they're there to make money. They're gonna draw whatever, right? I didn't know that. I only ever had one guy tell me no, he couldn't draw it because, you know, it was an IP he hadn't worked on or whatever. You know what I mean? And that was Tom Fowler. He declined to do Nyobi, so I got him to do a Catwoman. But the rest of them totally drew Nyobi. So I was getting Nyobi drawn by, like, you know, local people, but I was also getting Nyobi drawn by, like, you know, the guy that did Black Beetle, you know, Frank Avila. You know, I was getting Nyobi drawn by Ashley Marie Witter, Dom Mateague, and Jamie Tyndall. You know, the list goes on. And that really got me thinking about doing a comic, right? Because I was seeing now my shitty drawings, my character, brought to life by people that actually knew what they were doing. You know what I mean? And I'm like, shit, this damn looks cool. I can't draw it, but I can certainly write it, and then I'll find someone to draw it later. You know, so I wrote the first Nyobi back in 2015, and it was a black and white comic. And I got, you know, my two buddies that were, you know, local. One guy had never really drawn sequential comics before, but he really wanted to try it. So sure, we'll be the, you know, let's be the guinea pig and do that. You know what I mean? And then my buddy Andre drew the cover, who is a phenomenal local artist. Like, he's just, locally, he's a big name here. We threw together the first Nyobi, and it was a comic book that I think we did maybe 200, 300 printed of. You know, we sold it at the local convention. You know, we sold a few at Free Comic Book Day locally and then at the shop, and then the rest just, you know, went on the small, tiny little Kickstarter that we did with a whole 62 backers and raised, what was it, 2,200 Canadian, which is about 86 cents US. So that's how it started. But basically, the character is a Japanese pop singer who can teleport. So there's kind of like where the magic influence comes in because of the teleportation, right? But she's also influenced, say, by like Dazzler of the X-Men, because Dazzler was essentially the X-Men's, you know, pop star singer. You know, there's a little bit of anime in there because I was big into, like, you know, the anime from the 90s. You know, the Japanese girls with pigtails, like Burn Up W and Dominion Tank Police, and, you know, Gunbuster and stuff like that, right? So Nyobi's a mix of a lot.
You're talking to somebody who was born in the 90s, who went all the way back to the 1950s with Tezuka, and then came all the way up through from to today with anime. I've gone through 70 years in my 28 years of being on this planet with anime. So I know exactly what you're talking about with every single show you just mentioned. And this is one of the things that I really like about Nyobi, is that obviously she is a Japanese American girl, and, you know, it's very cultured in many ways, and there's a lot of influences in your book, and that's something that's super interesting because it's very different than everything else that's out there, I feel. And obviously, to even go further into this, her powers are sort of also killing her, and what happens when you're already slightly famous, and then you get powers, and then, well, a bunch of shit starts happening that these powers ensue, and you make a bunch of decisions that she makes and sort of reveals herself. And it's a very interesting book, just the premise alone, not to mention everything else that's thrown in there.
I thank you for that. It's funny that you mentioned, like, you know, you're somewhat famous, and then you're going to become a hero, and you're probably going to get even more famous. So, like, we are totally diving into that with the new book, right? With Nyobi Origins, because everyone has always asked me, like, what's her origin story? You know, how did she get her powers? Da 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 da. Right? And in book one, you know, the very first issue, we don't really explain how she got her power. She's just, you know, she's just there. But in the back, we did a 2-page bio. You know what I mean? So you can read the bio, and then you read the book, and you're fine. You know, you're caught up. You're up to date. What I did was I decided to take that 2-page bio and turn it into a comic book. And so that is what Nyobi Origins is now. It is the origin story of a star, you know, story that's never been told. You kind of get it in the bio, but I've added so much more to it. You know, we got 2 new characters showing up. There's a huge concert scene. You know, we do show like her powers erupting. You know, it's going to be cool, man. And it was a hard book to do. It was hard to write. It was long to write because it's 35 pages of story, and it could have been longer. And the thing about it was I had to decide if I want to break it up into 2 parts or if I was just going to do like a big sort of thick one shot. And I'm like, it's her origin story. You know, I should just put it in 1 volume sort of thing. You know what I mean? Here's a nice thick book. It's going to be like the size of like a Marvel annual from back in the day, like, you know, it's X-Men annual 10 sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's going to be, you know, a book of, you know, that sort of caliber and thickness. And we use Comics Wellspring, so I hope your sponsor don't get mad at me. But you know, they do a great job as well, and I can't wait to see this you know, come to life and be in my hand, and you know, and shipping out some books. Because I'll tell you, we're in the middle of a Kickstarter. It feels like I'm at the end of it, but honestly, we got 2 weeks left. You know, and I've been running so hard, almost live streaming seemingly every day. Pushing this book, posting this book, and I haven't even done a lot of appearances anywhere else. I've done a couple. Yours might be number 3. You know, like.
So I do want to, before we get into Origins, and we're going to slightly get controversial, but obviously I love old school Image as well, and you have a swimsuit edition, which I think is issue 3. And so
you done your homework, sir.
I appreciate it because I love swimsuit editions, and we were speaking off air, and I'm a huge Zenescope fan, and that's not a secret. And obviously, I love Zenescope swimsuit editions. I love Top Cow from the '90s, their swimsuit editions. I love the Street Fighter swimsuit edition, and I apparently missed a very important book in that realm this year, so I'm very upset about that. But we don't talk about that on this show because that's a very sore point still. It's a very expensive book. But one of the things is that, and I don't think I'm breaking any secret, but obviously you have a certain affiliation in comics, which gets a bad rap, and I don't know how you want to describe it, but one of the reasons why I brought up what Nyobi's origin is that this is almost the antithesis of what you've been labeled as. And I think it's very important that people recognize when they hear this, because people are going to be hearing it from both sides, that the other side isn't what you think it is. And I think it shows that, you know, this book is actually beyond culture. And it's actually very sympathetic. You do a great
job. I mean, I don't know what I'm labeled as, though. You see, that's the thing. You know, that's, you know, an opinion that someone may have of me. And, you know, we all have opinions of different people, right?
I think their opinion, though, is very wrong because obviously.
Oh, what is their opinion, though?
Center right in a lot of ways.
Center right. I vote conservative. Let's you know. I mean, if we really want to know, I mean, it's no one's business, but let's go ahead and say that.
The reason why I bring this up is because this book is very, you know, I find to be just a great comic story, and it's very cultured. And I don't think that unfortunately, I think some people look at this book and they don't understand that this book is very much female empowerment. It's very, you know, open to all races. It's highlighting many good features of people, and that's what I'm trying to get here, is that this is a very, very strong female character.
Well, you're talking about Birthright, I'm pretty sure. You know what I mean?
Probably that too, Birthright, very much so.
You know, Birthright was a sort of a difference. Birthright was everything that people said that they don't want in comics, and I gave it to them. Okay, Birthright was political. Birthright was religious. You know, Birthright, you know, trampled on social issues like abortion. I threw it all to the wall, brother. And I did it in a tasteful way. I did it in a way that didn't preach one side or the other on the issue of abortion. You know, Nyobi came at it with a you know, pro-choice attitude, which is, you know, what I think the character would have. And this is one thing that writers really need to learn. And I'm going to tell it to you straight. Writers write themselves in the characters they write. Okay, that's not writing. You know, Nyobi believes in a lot of things that I may not necessarily believe in, but that's because that's the character of Nyobi. Nyobi isn't
That's
like
important.
Higgins as a female in a comic book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just about to say that's important because obviously writing, from my understanding, and I haven't written a comic, I've written some prose, I haven't published anything, but as a writer, your job is to envision characters that you are sometimes and some things that you aren't, and you're supposed to, you know, take what maybe you're not exactly something and then envision it, you know, and transform that and write it. And I think writers in today's age, a bunch of them don't know how to do that. And I think it's a real problem where people don't know how to separate their personal beliefs from their writing projects as well.
Right. And if you are going to, you know, and throw in your personal beliefs, there is a way to do it without being overbearing, without being too preachy. You know, the idea of a good comic book, and this is what you used to get out of the X-Men back in the day, was you would read an X-Men book, and the X-Men had all that stuff. But the way that Chris Claremont would do it is you would read it, and it would leave you sort of in awe. You know, it will leave you sort of scratching your head and, you know, maybe rethinking things, or you look and examining things from different aspects. You know, and the thing about a good comic is you're supposed to get a couple of different points of view at once. So in Birthright, you get Ariel's point of view, and Ariel comes from that very religious background. She serves the church. She believes in pro-life. And that's where in Birthright, Nyobi and her clash, you know. And in the end, the bigger lesson is had they worked together to find a solution that was optimal for the person they were trying to protect, instead of clashing with each other because they had different ideologies, maybe they could have gotten something done instead of failing, because at the end of the book, they both fail, you know.
Yeah. It's not a great ending for either one of them. I mean, it's a phenomenal comic, but it's not like a thrilling, happy ending for what winds up happening in it. I mean, there's a resolution. It's just not the ideal one.
Right, and but that resolution happened because these two couldn't work together to solve their differences. That's the message that I was trying to give to people, you know.
And so that's something that I want to bring up because I think it's super important, and the fact that you're calling it like it is, and I think people don't know how to call things like it is anymore either. And I think that's a massive problem, not just in comics but in life. I mean, you know, I was watching something where people don't know how to compare two editorials that have opposing views right now in America, and then we go forward, it's going to be a big problem where people are, you know, they're not illiterate that they can't read, they're illiterate in how they're reading, what they can interpret out of reading, and reading in between the lines of things.
Yeah, you know, Origins is a different, you know, sort of story though. Origins doesn't have any of that. You know what I mean? Origins is straight up a superhero origin story. You know, there is no real huge controversy or social issue being touched. This is, you know, because I have kind of sort of different styles of writing. Every now and then I like to tap into what I'm seeing, you know, in culture today. You know, like back in when we did Nyobi #1, that first book was about teen suicide and depression. You know, we went ahead and tackled that topic. You know, and then we did the abortion issue in Birthright. You know, you talked about the swimsuit issue. That was just straight up, you know, us fooling around. You know what I mean? Like she goes on a tropical island. You know, she's there for a photo shoot. You know, there's like, you know, you know, a creature running on the loose out there that no one quite understands.
But those books are important because those books do sell. From a business standpoint, swimsuit editions in comics always sell. Because somebody might not be interested in particular in the Nyobi story, but when they see the swimsuit edition, they're like, okay, I collect swimsuit editions. I know plenty of collectors who all they collect is swimsuit editions, and they're willing to spend big money for it.
Well,
and
what was different about our swimsuit edition, though, than the ones you're mentioning is, you know, it was two local guys doing it, so we didn't have, like, you know, the top tier sort of art talent that you're going to see in these other books that you mentioned. The other thing was it was black and white. The other thing is that we had a story in ours, right? So it wasn't, you know, cover to cover pinups. It was there was a a story, and then in the middle of the story, she's actually doing her photo shoot. So we do 10 pages of different people's art to simulate her photo shoot, and then boom, we get back to the story.
And so you invented that because now everybody's copying you in their swimsuit edition. So just take the credit and run.
I didn't know I invented that. All right, I'll take it.
Because now apparently everybody in the comic world is realizing that you can't just do a pinup book of a swimsuit. You actually have to have like an 8 or 9 page story in there, and then
we were even more than that. We were probably more like 16 pages of story in there. And the idea too behind it was like I really wanted to do a swimsuit issue, but I wanted to do it as a story, and we were going to call it Nyobi number 3, right? So swimsuit edition is Nyobi number 3, and then Broken Kiss was Nyobi number 4. And then that's sort of where we stopped, though. And then we did Avani Origins number 1, which was sort of like the last of the old school Nyobi stuff. And then our whole entire art team changed. Steve Boyu went on to do Linda 7000, Canadian Sydney, is now working with the Antarctic Press, doing Tiger X with Ben Dunn. So Steve has landed very well.
Ben Dunn. I love Ben Dunn. Ben Dunn has been so nice to me.
Yeah, no, well, dude, they've been great to me. We can get into that a little later too, but that's what ended up happening with Steve, and so I, also knew I wanted to change things with Nyobi. I knew a few things had to happen. One was that we needed to be in full color, and this was, some advice I'd gotten after sort of submitting the comic book around to a couple of different publishers. I had one publisher here in Canada call me back, like literally call me on the phone, to talk to me about it. I never had that happen in comic books before. Usually, you send something off for submission, it goes off into the ether, and you never hear anything back again. Every now and then, 3 months later, you might get a rejection letter. I've only had 2 people, 3, get back to me like within a day or 2 after submitting it, which means they saw it, they read it, and then, immediately hit me back. That was Peter Samedi from Alterna Comics. He turned us down, but, he gave us some encouraging words, and, he did check it out, right, to his credit. He didn't waste no time. Ben Dunn of Antarctic Press and Brian Durham, okay, and Tony White of Chapter House Comics here in Canada. And Tony was the one that called me back and said, the art still needs some work. You know what I mean? You need to be in color. He said Nyobi should have a costume, an outfit. Which she still doesn't really have. She just still runs around in her skirt and leather jacket, But that is something that I'm thinking about doing, though. Maybe making a sort of cool racetrack superhero outfit for her, We'll see what happens. But, he gave me some feedback, and I took that feedback, and I used some of it. I didn't use some of it. But one of the things that we definitely knew we had to do was we needed a new art team, and we needed to be in color. And so
let's talk about that, because it's super interesting, because I've spoken to certain people, and in the middle of a big run, they changed their art team, and they had a falling out with their artist, and they were on this show, and it's very nerve-wracking. And they also changed publishers in the middle, where they moved from Image, I think, to Dark Horse, or to Dynamite. I forget which one it was, but obviously it's a big jump, and a bunch of changes were happening, and you change an art team, and you also have a slight time skip. And what was that like? Because that's a big jump, because now...
It was the easiest thing I ever did. And it was the best thing we ever did. And that's not to put down, Steve or whoever else was on Nyobi before that. But Steve understood that I needed to grow Nyobi, and he understood that he still needed work on his art, And we had a really frank talk about that. And Steve went on to continue practicing his art. But I needed to, advance Nyobi. And so, so Steve and I are still friends, and Steve and I still do a little work together. He did the Avani trading card on the last campaign. He just did the Sybil trading card on this campaign. Plus, like I said earlier, he landed very nicely. He landed doing, because Steve's strength was never really drawing what I wanted him to draw. Steve's strength was drawing giant mecha robots. Okay, that's his specialty. Steve can draw the hell out of a transformer, and he should have been working for IDW years ago, and we've always told that to him. And Steve had a good relationship with Ben Dunn, and Steve would always email Ben Dunn once or twice a month, showing him his artwork. And Ben Dunn would write him back with critique, and Steve would take that critique and then next month email him again. And Steve was drawing mecha robots, and Ben Dunn eventually hired him on to do Tiger X, which is a backstory that you're going to see in the next issues of Ninja High School. So yeah, me and Steve were 100% cool. Andre Boulard, who did the first ever Nyobi cover, actually came back after 7 years to do the cover for that issue again as a third printing, and that's an add-on on the campaign, which is our #1, add-on, which is awesome because people want to read that very first story, right? I warned them though; it's black and white; it's not the same art style, but that to some people that doesn't matter. They just want what was the very first, and there's so few of them out there that we end up having to do with third printing. But yeah, I mean, so the transition wasn't hard. The hardest part was who was going to be the next artist, though. It wasn't like, falling out with the art team. There was no really falling out, but it was going to be who was going to take us to that next level, right? And so we still didn't have anyone. And and the problem was there was all kinds of great talent out there that wanted to do it, but the budget was very small. We didn't have a lot of money, it was all going to come out of my pocket. So paying someone $200 a page, for a 20-page comic wasn't going to be very realistic. Just wasn't going to happen.
I was just about to ask you about finances because because you're already candid, and this is one of the things that I'm having a hard time where I have an idea in my head. It's just a matter of how to finance it because I have personal economic covets and I don't want to go into debt to produce a book. And that's just something that, it's very complicated. And then Kickstarter, and finding a team to do it and also finding an artist and all that stuff. And, it gets very expensive, and then you still got to print it because, your artist has to eat too.
Sure. And so, when we got on to Birthright, there was almost like a 1.5 year sort of absence between Avani and Birthright. And the way it was paid for was, like I had to save money. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. I had to save money wherever I could until I at least had enough capital that I can at least start paying an artist. And then sort of, I do the pay as we go system, right? So an artist draws me a page, I pay them for the page. They draw me another page, I pay them for the page. You know what I mean? That's how it goes. And if I need to stop them for a little bit until I get another paycheck, I can say, hey man, let's hold off for another week, right? But we'll do another page next week. You know what I mean? And Birthright 1 was slowly put together that way. And the artist that did it was Samir Sameo, and he was a guy that I found through another guy who does a book called Glacial, which is Kevin Rodatelli, I think is you pronounce his last name. He's actually a French-Canadian up in Quebec. And he was running a little service, so like, hey, if you need an artist, if you need a colorist, contact me. I'm basically agent for a bunch of people, right? And so I decided, well, what the hell, man? I do need someone. I contacted Kevin. I'm like, dude, I'm looking for someone to draw the next Nyobi, but they got to have, at least a style that I can be happy with. That's going to, try and fit as much as we can as a 90s look or Zenoscope sort of look, He said, well, what's your budget? And I gave him my budget. And he's like, I know a couple of people. Let me go check around, see if anyone's interested in taking that on. And then we found someone, and he was great. And we brought him right on. And so we had an artist. Okay, cool. And he was cool with the pay-as-you-go plan, right? Which was important because here's my problem was if I had to pay it all up front, I couldn't do it, for one. But also, when you pay it all up front, what ends up happening is the artist gets lazy. They already got the money, so now they're not in a rush, right? But when you do as pay-as-you-go, they're always looking for that next payment. So, work tends to get done faster. You know what I mean? And it makes it a little easier on the creator if he doesn't have a wad of cash already stashed away.
Also, there's something going on. I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever been the victim of this, but there's plenty of times where somebody pays for something and then the artist ghosts that person.
Yeah, the whole take the money and run scenario. Yeah. But that's why, that's the big danger of paying up front. Now, some people will do, I'll pay you half now and pay half when the job is done, and if I was able to do that, I would have struck that deal too. But all I could do at the time was the pay-as-you-go plan, right? But he was cool with that. So, okay, cool. We got an artist. That's Rocky. Now we need someone to do color, right? And this is my first foray into color. I have no idea what this is going to cost, what this is going to look like. Am I overtaking too much? You know what I mean? It's just going to put me in debt to the point I'm never going to be able to do another Nyobi comic again because I'm already paying more for an artist. I'm already paying now for color, right? I don't have the local printer anymore because they're god-awful expensive. They told me if I print color, it's going to cost me twice as much, which would have been like $10 a book. Like, no way, I have to go now outsource this somewhere, which I found comics. It was just a bunch of stuff, right? So I put on my Facebook, I'm looking for a coach. Do you want to work on Nyobi? You want to help grow this this thing with me? Let me know. Contact me Facebook, send me your page rate, and send me some samples. But make sure you know what you're doing, sort of thing. Overnight, dude, I have 50 messages. Most of them went to my seriously, man. Most of them went to my spam folder, and I had to go through my spam folder and find them all. But there were two guys, after all the sort of going through it all, two guys that A, fit the budget, and B, fit the style, which was Russ Cassidy and Dan Olvera. Okay. And so I had two top contenders, and I threw them each a test page, and I paid them for the test pages, And I'm like, here's a page for you. Here's the exact same page for you. Boys, have at it. And may the best man win. Welcome to the Thunderdome, right? And, they went ahead and did it, and they were both great. But I gravitated towards Dan's a little bit more, and he became the man,
And so obviously, and this is where this is all going, and we're diving into Nyobi's origins here. And so what can people expect? Because we're going to get into covers in a second, which is my favorite thing to talk about. All the pictures.
Yeah. Well, we're all about, I have an addiction, my friend, okay?
So where is this story going, and what can people expect with it? Because obviously the world of Nyobi now is very much developed, where we got the main first story, then we got Birthright, and now we're getting her origin story. And obviously this is an end. So what is this exactly?
All right, so this is basically a reboot. Flat out, we're sort of remolding what Nyobi is and was and what she's going to be. The black and white stuff was cool, right? That was the clay that we got to play with to learn our trade, right? But Birthright is the start of what I would call the new run of Nyobi. You know what I mean? We're not on color. The Kickstarters were getting better. It was like a year and a half in between books. I'm like, if we're gonna, bring this back, it's going to be essentially a soft reboot. So all the stuff in the black and white issues are cool. All those characters are going to be around, but events and stuff like that might be changed to suit the new reboot. And the other reason for the reboot is, and I thought long and hard about doing a reboot because I was a guy that, dude, I'm never going to reboot. You know what I mean? Right? What's done is done. But then I thought about it, because we got a publishing deal with Antarctic Press. And so now that means Nyobi's going to be in shops. And that means we're going to have new eyeballs and new readers. And if there ever was a time to sort of like learn from all our mistakes and, remold things and make it even cooler, now is the time to do it, since now we're going to be in shops. You know what I mean?
And you're also going more mainstream, and also it's a jumping on point, and it's also chronological, which helps tremendously. All that stuff, makes it easier for somebody like me who goes to a shop, once every 3 weeks. Like, oh, this looks cool. Or I go on previews, and then I see it, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I can jump onto this a hell of a lot easier.
Dude, oh, man. The first time I went and bought the previews catalog, obviously with my issue in it, that blew me away. You want to talk about like living the childhood dream, like 14-year-old me, you would have said to 14-year-old me, even with the ego I got, that one day, you're going to have a comic book, it's going to be in shops, and you're going to be featured in the preview magazine, which you're used to flipping through all the time. I would have said you're full of crap. In fact, when I told my buddies when I did Nyobi #1 across the Dungeons and Dragons table, I was going to make a comic book, I got laughed out of the room. They're like, you can never do it. It can't be done. You don't have what it takes. And talk about lighting a fire underneath my butt. You know what I mean? And now fast forward 7 years, and here we are, and now we got a shot with a company that has a long history and legacy in this business, over 35 years of comic books. Gold Digger, Ninja High School, man. They did Captain Harlot. They did a run on Robotech. They did Project A-Co. You know what I mean? Like, Antarctic Press. And now they got some of the hottest books right now. They got Punchline with Matt Weldon. They got Rags with Brian Ball. They reprint Common America from Tim Lim, right? They do Patriotica, man. And now they got Nyobi, Like, it blows my mind, dude. So I'm trying to find the preview magazine, and of course I can't find it when I'm looking for it. I was going to come on camera, but I don't know where it is.
And so obviously there's a lot of stuff going on, and then the Kickstarter is running fully, and so you got a bunch of rewards because that's the fun stuff to talk about. And obviously I'm a cover glutton, and I have to go find like $25 to back your project now.
Well, I'll tell you why it's 25 though, because A, they're more expensive to print, because B, it's a thicker book. Like the Birthright stuff was 24-page comic book, standard sort of floppy size. This is almost double, right? And so, as 35 pages, but it's also going to have some pinups in the back. So it's going to be like 40-page book plus the cover. It's going to be big, thick book. So we had to ask for a little bit more for that. So
let's talk about the cheap stuff first, because you're offering a bunch of digital stuff, and I've been a big proponent of digital, and I've been doing this show for a while, and a little bit before this on my other show. And one of the things is that I got laughed at, and people made fun of me with digital. And I'm like, digital is the best thing ever, because there's people who only have $5 or $10, and they don't want to pay shipping, but they just want to read the thing and they want to carry it wherever they go, because you travel a lot and you can't transport a bunch of comics. So, wow, you're on camera. This is amazing.
Rebel Comics is amazing. Like what?
And so I love the digital stuff, and so that's previews.
Yeah, this is the previews magazine. It's got Captain Picard right on the cover. Make it so #1, and right there, ladies and gentlemen, is me like living my childhood dream. There's Nyobi in a previews magazine, going to be on the shelf. Man, this is why we're doing Origins, because with Origins now, Origins is the origin story, right? So it's a great jumping on point. Hey, grab Origins, because that's going to be in shops in 2022. That's sort of the deal I got with the Antarctic Press, is I can do all my crowdfunded stuff, and then afterwards they're going to print it and put it out in the shops, right? So you can jump on board with Origins, and you can buy Exciting Comics 17 through 20 and get the Birthright story. And now you're on board with Nyobi. We're good to go, and then everything else is gravy from there.
Yeah, and so obviously that's super exciting, and I've actually never ever had a preview copy, because I order everything offline and I go through previews on midtowncomics.com, which is basically the entire digitalization version of that. So I've never actually touched a preview magazine, so that's super cool that I actually seen one, because I've never actually seen one either.
They're huge, they're thick, they're like the Sears catalog for comic books,
I'm like the worst comic book fan ever, clearly. So having said all that, obviously digital, and you could catch up with everything digital, and it's pretty affordable. But then we get into the fun covers, and I have pictures. So this is, I think, cover A.
Yeah, man, that's cover A. So that's Juan Antonio Taveras. He's the guy that's now replacing Samir Samayo, because the problem with Samir was we weren't getting work done fast enough, right? Birthright 2 took forever. And I had a frank talk with him. I'm like, we need to go fast. He's like, well, I'm doing 6 books at once. And I'm like, that's not going to work for me. You know what I mean? That's simply not going to work for me. You can't be doing 6 books at once and expect to get anything done, So I said, I'm going to go with someone else. And he said, that's fine. That's cool. No problem. So we found Juan Antonio, who was recommended to me by my colorist, because they had worked together previously, right? So these guys have worked together for Action Lab Comics. They've done work on Puppet Master, which, if you're a horror comic book fan, you know Puppet Master. And so that was, a pretty good resume right there. But plus, they've done other Action Lab stuff and other indie stuff together. So I already knew if I brought this guy on, he was going to work well with the colorist, and they were already, a team. They have already worked together. So it was a no-brainer to get him on.
That's the best.
Got me into Chibis. That's right. Yeah.
And then I'm sorry, I had to throw that one up, because that one just made me laugh.
Sarah. She's the Sarah Angel of comic book fans, just so you know.
This is so bad on so many levels. And then obviously cover B right here, and I like this cover because this is very futuristic.
Well, I mean, this isn't Nyobi. This is the new character Sybil. This is our world's Emma Frost, more or less. She's a very high-powered telepath that utilizes some modern technology with an ancient relic, and she's badass, man. And she makes her first appearance. If you're a key issue collector, this is going to be a key issue. And you know, people laugh when indies say key issues, but I mean, we're in shops now. This is going to be a key issue for this character.
Also, I mean, my background is I'm a comic book investor. I'm an alt investor. I talk about this. I'm building out the class.
Oh, dude, listen. Before I got into making comic books, I was still doing comic book YouTube, and I hung out with all the flippers. I was hanging out with the Great Legends Show. I was on We Love Comics with Chris. Okay, I was, man, Travis Bueller and I from Comics with Bueller streamed together. I was on the I was the founder of the fucking Comic Corps. You know, like.
So I'm building out the class where I actually teach the basics, because the basics aren't taught anymore, and it's a big issue. And everybody talks about flipping. Nobody talks about long-term comic book investing, buying a key issue and holding on to it and wait for that product to get licensed, and not to flip it, but waiting 8 years on a book and turning a $4 book into.
Well, that was always my approach to collecting comics. Was, you know, I didn't look at them as, you know, a quick turnaround, because when I started, eBay really wasn't a thing, but collecting comics was, and collecting comics for investment was a huge thing until the image, you know, bubble popped and sort of fucked that around for a lot of people. But you know, having a #1 in the day used to be a cool thing. Now having a #1 means squat. But having the first appearance of a beloved character, now that's a whole different ballgame.
And so obviously, you know, it's just a matter of that with Nyobi. This can go in a lot of different directions. It could go novelization, it can go animation, it could go movie, and I don't know where exactly it's going. I'm not going to force you to answer, but everything is getting optioned, licensed, re-optioned, relicensed.
Well, I can tell you this: we haven't been approached for anything. As far as I'm concerned, Nyobi is an independent comic book that also gets published through Antarctic Press. That is what Nyobi is at this point. There's no other deals or anything in the works.
But you get where I'm going with this, and I think that's what I mean by I'm trying to sell your book, man.
No, I got. Oh, don't worry, I can sell it. I want you to ask all your questions, man, and then we can get into that, you know.
And then obviously, I love CB Zane, and CB Zane's been on twice, and I thoroughly enjoyed Might, and I loved Might, and I actually picked up 2 covers of Might purposely, and so this is very cool. And obviously, this is referencing, I think it's paying homage to a cover. And so, what was this like to get to work with CB Zane and have him work on something, and obviously do a very cool thing where you're crossing 2 indie characters over? Because when it's done, it's great the right way.
Well, the thing with CB Zane is, of course, he's a phenomenal artist. And I didn't even know CB Zane when I first sort of ran into him, in the sense of, like, I bought Into the Suck, which was a comic book he was working on. I bought Into the Suck 1 because I had a badass chick on it. And I read it, and she was a badass chick, you know. And so then I added him up on Facebook, sort of thing, started following him. And he started working with Mr. Tom Hutchinson over at Big Dog Inc. and doing interior work for him and doing covers. And eventually I just made an overture to him and just said, hey, you know, well, actually it was, he said to me, I would love to draw Nyobi someday. And I said, great, we would love to have you draw her someday. And then when the time came, I hit him up, but we didn't actually have him draw Nyobi, because the cover you're looking at is his second cover he's done for us. The first cover was back on Birthright, and he drew the angel character, Ariel. Right? He's like, oh, I didn't even get to draw Nyobi. I said, I know, but this is the theme. All the part 2s have Ariel on it, right? And he said, well, I really want to draw Nyobi someday. And I said, next time, brother, you're definitely drawing Nyobi. And so next time came, which was Origins, and I said, you know what? I was on the big J. Scott Campbell kick. I still am. I'm like, he's one of my faves. And I said, listen, dude, let's do an homage cover. You know, I said, let's put Mighty Might on it. Let's do, you know, something J. Scott Campbell like, and let's do it. So this is a, you know, an homage to J. Scott Campbell's Gen 13 Supergirl #2 cover. And so, you know, you would have like Caitlin Fairchild looking up at Supergirl, and Supergirl sort of looking down at her. And I said, you know, do that. You know what I mean? And he did it in spades, you know. And then we had Dan Olvera color it.
And then speaking about J. Scott Campbell, this is another, and this is 607, and my 607's listed on eBay right now.
Right, so, right. Yeah, I have it. Yeah, I have most of his covers from Spider-Man. But this one here, of course, is the, you know, the famous Black Cat photo. This was the J. Scott Campbell challenge that he ran on Twitter when he took a bunch of flack for people criticizing his female form, and J. Scott Campbell made them all look like jackasses. He became the hero of the internet, and he said, "Hey, draw her in your style. Go ahead. Here she is. Boom." And the internet exploded with J. Scott Campbell artwork. Really, if he didn't have a name before, he amplified it by 10, and everyone was doing this picture. Everyone was doing this pose, and me included, and David Fott, who, is friends with Tom Hutchinson and Jim Noble from Totally Rad Comics and all that stuff. Once again, he said, "I want to draw Nyobi, and I'm going to do it for free." And I said, "Whoa, for free? Well, we can't really say no to that, right?" And I said, and then I tossed him the idea of, I said, how about you do the J. Scott Campbell thing, And so we went ahead and we did it, and we stuck the little chibi on her shirt, and Dan once again colored it, and then I still paid him.
And obviously, it's just a great cover, 607. I'm a little sad to let it go. It's still up, and I'm asking a pretty penny for it because I'm crying.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, though, where David Fott is concerned. Listen, David Fott had cancer. He just fought colon cancer. He just fought COVID, and now his wife is in hospital with COVID. So go over to David Fott's page. I think there might be a GoFundMe up, where you can throw David a few shekels, because they're, man, you want to talk about, a couple there that, has been really having a tough go at it lately. You know what I mean?
And then obviously, this is another great cover, and this is a good one too. And I know we did it slightly out of order, purposely. Yeah. Because we were on a Campbell.
You're building up, brother. I can feel it. Yeah. This is Joel Souza. Joel Souza came on my radar because I saw an image he did of Magic. And he had it looking like it was straight out of like Bruce Timm, you know what I mean? The Bruce Timm Batman animated style. And, maybe mixed in with a little bit of Darwin Cook in here. And he had his rates up, rates right on his page, and it was $85 for a drawing. And I messaged him and I said, "Listen, I would love to have you draw Nyobi. I'm more than willing to give you $85, but can we use it as a cover?" "Oh, absolutely." I said, "Well, damn, dude." I said, "Here's the thing that you don't know." I said, "You just opened up Pandora's box." As I said, "I'm about to get you a lot of work." And I did, man. As soon as we released this and people saw his rates, he got flooded. Tom Hutchinson had hit him up. CB Zane had hit him up. Nicholas Mueller hit him up. Tyler Carpenter hit him up. Everyone in the crew came right at him, man. You know what I mean?
And so, this is just a fun cover, and it's cool that obviously this cover produced a lot more work than what you paid him in a lot of ways, and that's super important. And that's something that I want to do in a lot of ways, is that my whole point of doing this show, and how this all started, is that in 2020, in March, everybody's cons were getting canceled, and all I wanted to do is grant the people exposure. And so it's super important that you did that, and I think it's awesome to throw that in there and even that story, because it's a cool cover. So. Yeah.
Well, Sarah's saying a lot of things here in the chat. So
you could just answer all of it.
She's got a couple of things here I'm going to touch on. She says, "Do you think that posters are still a big enough of a thing to have as a stretch goal or non-profitable?" Posters are cool. Posters are damn cool. And I'm talking, like, if you're going to do a poster, though, I'm not talking about like an 11 by 17 print. If you're going to do a poster, 24 by 36. You know what I mean? However, I can't sell them because they require a whole different sort of packaging. I like to be able to fit as much as I can into a Gemini mailer and keep it simple.
Tubes are a pain in the ass in a lot of ways.
I actually have Nyobi posters made. They're in my room right here, but they're personal. I just, brought them down to local Staples and had them made them for $20. They're, the other thing is that making posters is expensive. Unless if you're making them by the hundreds or even thousands, they're not cheap to make. So, I don't really see the profit in them. Like for us at this sort of small stage in the game, maybe one day, we can offer posters. So if I was like doing a local convention, I might have a few on hand because that'd just be kind of cool, But, just to have on a crowdfunding campaign, they're too big. They're require different packaging. And, you would want to do a poster as an add-on, right? So not as a tier. And so people would probably add-on posters by the droves, which means every little package I'm going to mail out has now become a big package I got to mail out, you know?
It becomes just a nightmare because shipping posters, rolling up posters, making sure your poster arrives nicely, it's a pain. I was going to be entering a deal with somebody to do posters, and then, yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to be making much
money. Don't get me wrong, though, they're cool. I mean, here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but there's the poster of my Paul Green cover right there that I made, right? I mean, they're cool. Don't get me wrong. They're expensive. Up there, I got some original artwork. Way over there, you can kind of not see it very well, but it's like the wall of Nyobi, and we got Chung Lee on the wall. You know what I mean? So we got a bunch of. Now I'm doing the room tour, dude. Now we got a bunch of statues up there. Metallica, yes sir. And then way over here, we got the TV with some Funko Pops. But my TV stand is comic book boxes. So there's like 10 comic book boxes right there. You know what I mean? Just full long boxes. And then I got 2 over there. And then in this back room, I got probably 1 or 2 more in there, And then I got a whole drawer full of key issues and just like commission work that I'd done on sketch covers and stuff, man.
And so there's a lot of stuff there. And then
dude, there's too much stuff here. I mean, I'm like you. I might have to consider downsizing a bit,
Oh, I don't need the money. I just want the money.
The camera just fell.
And so sometimes it's time to make exits out of investments, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. And depending on how certain things sell, maybe I don't have to sell my 607, or maybe I'll buy like a 9.8 of it.
What is the 607 going for? Last time I checked it out, which is a while back, was like $50,
Oh, I mean, they one of them just sold for like I think 100. So. Yeah. It's not bad. I'm asking 130 for mine, and I'll take what I can get, because I paid 50 for mine like 3 years ago. So, and I just sold a 601 for 140. So, yeah, raw. So
hot. I mean, that's why people, Paul Green was the top selling cover we ever had on Birthright, and it was a shame we couldn't get him this time. But his wife had medical problems that he had to address at home. But I've managed to get this off of Paul, which was like the original sketch of Ariel for the cover.
And so, Paul Green's a very, very difficult man to track down for interviews. I've come to learn that.
He's old. He doesn't do a lot of them. Listen, I tried, But speaking of him, this is the yellow label, CGC, signed by me. I have a CGC Traders account, so I can just send them books now. And 9/8, so the collector in you might appreciate that. Beautiful Paul Green cover. I had 5 of these. 4 of them went instantly, and this is my personal copy, right there.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Right?
What were you saying?
Well, no, I'm just saying that's kind of what it's about, man. This is kind of where Nyobi's growing. Nyobi is definitely a book that the collector's market looks at in the sense of the covers, right, and who we get as cover artists, because when you talk about eBay, right here, look at this one. This is done by Matthew Weldon,
and obviously this is paying also tribute to something where it's you put it up on Twitter, and this is how I saw it, because I was debating between you and Matthew, and I'm probably going to try to get Matthew on at some point if I can. That you said, why try to get a knockoff or something to that effect when you could get the original?
Well, this pose has been commonly done 100 times. That's not the issue. The issue is that DC had put out a Harley Quinn right after this cover was circulating around, and it was led to suspect that are they copying us? And then a couple other people have brought to my attention that this wasn't the first time that DC had emulated or copied Matthew Weldon, and they showed me a couple of other examples. So I don't know, man. I mean, I really don't know. At the time, I was convinced, but I think about it now, and who knows. Because it is sort of like a common pose. But when you look at the other examples, that conspiracy theorist in you starts to run. You know what I mean?
Also, what starts happening is that I look at trends in comics, and all of a sudden what starts happening is that you start seeing A and B and C, and there's a Paul Green cover that he just did. I don't know if you saw what Zenescope just released. And I think it's in your add-on. You already showed it a little bit. This right here, and obviously there's a Zenescope cover that just came out that's for their collectors club and it looks so similar, but it's obviously Paul Green. So I don't know if Paul Green took some of this.
And I'll tell you if I think it's similar.
I'll find it in a second.
But, I mean, you can't find it now. You know, maybe you show it to me later. You know, just Facebook it to me or something. I'll be like,
it's beautiful. It's Hellchild, and it's so similar. And the idea, though, is that I think it's a little bit different if an artist like Paul Green does a similar cover, and he did that cover. I think it's a little bit different than when, you know, somebody, DC Comics or Marvel's ripping off from an indie creator. I think it's significantly different.
I'll tell you this, you know, and this comes back to doing YouTube, and it's a discussion that, you know, I actually had with Tyler at one point, and it was like, you know, the claim was that a lot of smaller YouTubers were trying to rip off bigger YouTubers in a way that they do things, right? You know, like, you know, maybe you copy their format or you know, their content or whatever. But what it really is, and, you know, It's a Gundam had said it best. He said, no, it's not that. He said, it's the bigger YouTubers that steal from the little guys that no one's ever heard of, taking what they think looks cool and putting it on their platform.
That's an interesting position in which that, I mean, I always
it's like Mark Zuckerberg stealing Facebook from the twins. You know, I can do it, but I can do it better, and I got more eyeballs on me.
That is true. That is true, and that could very well be what's going on.
Oh, I'm not saying that is. I'm just saying it's a possibility. You gotta be open to that. You know, that people are going to copy, people are going to emulate, people are going to try and duplicate. You know, that's just the reality of it.
I mean, look, I mean, this entire format has, I wouldn't say the entire format's been copied off of, you know, necessarily off of, you know, other people who have done interviews, but my entire show, obviously, I looked at Howard Stern, I looked at Joe Rogan, I looked at a variety of other people, and I said, okay, how are they doing this project and making it work? And that's how I learned how to be an interviewer. And then you obviously adapt your own style, and I think that's how people grow. But
you know, open yourself to the possibility that I'm doing Rebel Comics, right? And I do a segment or something on Rebel Comics, or I do something in my intro, and a bigger YouTuber sees it and goes, I actually kind of like that. I'm going to do that myself, and they just rip me off. Don't think that doesn't happen, because it does. You know.
True. I'm about to pull up this comic as soon as my laptop uploads, because it's so relevant of this Hellchild, because it's so, I mean, it's a beautiful cover, and I totally want to show this cover as soon as StreamYard will allow me to do anything, because apparently it's just being rather difficult here. But yeah, no, it's I'll show another cover while we're waiting, just because there's so many other things that are awesome out of this. There's also this one right here.
That one there is done by Justin Hunt. He's a guy that does a lot of work, again, with, you're going to find that some of these artists work a lot with the same cats, because I'm going to list off the same names. You know, Tom Hutchinson, Big Dog Inc. This man's also done covers for Brian Pulido's Lady Death, you know. And he approached me. He said, I would love to do an Nyobi cover. And again, it was like one of those things of, well, we would love to have you. And so we worked out a deal, and we got him in.
And then obviously this is another.
Yeah. So Catwoman 51, homage to Adam Hughes. This is the one Catwoman of all the Adam Hughes covers I don't have, right? And this is a thing that people don't get when they think about key issues and stuff, is that because it's not a key issue, but it's a hot cover, and hot covers, as you know, as a Zenoscope comic book collector, spring up in value, especially if they sort of get rare. Catwoman 51 has been one of those covers that has consistently hold its price, if not gone up in price. And it's, you know, a hot book to get CGC'd. It's a hot book to buy, and it's a cover that has been cover swiped many times. We've done it, you know, so we're 101. You know what I mean? Luigi Terrell of Rags, you know, Brian Ball, Antarctic Press, he did this one. And I love it, you know, it's great.
It's a fun cover, and obviously, you know, for those who are fans of this, and this also opens up the door, much like a variety of the other covers that we were talking about, where somebody might say, look, I love this cover, and I want to put it right next to this other book. And that's something that I like to do with certain books, is that if I know something is referencing something, I like to buy a bunch of the tribute and homage covers and put them next to each other, because they make really cool photos, and it's kind of fun. And I think that people who like this type of stuff tend to do that as well. And again, they might not necessarily know Nyobi right off the top, but then they see this cover like, oh, I need to have it because it's part of sort of this set
But
that's
that's also a good thing in many ways, because what ends up happening is, again, you being in the collector's market would know if something has a small print run, and it's, but it's somewhat cool, it ends up sort of being sought after. The reason why that Paul Green cover I told you off air was being flipped for $150 is twofold. It's Paul Green. He's got a well-known name in the Zenescope universe. But B, it's also one of his rarest covers. You know what I mean? Because it's from an indie guy who did a Kickstarter and only did, less than like 400 of them. So the real Paul Green collectors, the hardcore guys, they're gonna want his rarest of the rare. It's like, a hardcore J. Scott Campbell guy is gonna look for the obscure J. Scott Campbell cover somewhere. Well, Nyobi's that, right? And it's the same way here with Luigi Terrell. Rags gets flipped on eBay 100 times a day. I've sold Luigi covers on eBay for 50, 60 bucks. You know what I mean? Easy on eBay. I've only sold 10 comics on eBay, but everything I put up sold. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's one of those things, and then obviously, that's what it does, and then it's also very limited print run in a lot of ways, and so obviously it's really sought after, and people want that, or they want the next best thing, and then obviously this cover.
Oh my Gucci-ness. Oh my Gucci-ness. So this is RB White. Now RB White, he's worked for a lot of big companies. He's worked for Nickelodeon. He's worked for FX. He's worked in comic books. He's a European artist, so much along the ways that you would find by Milo Manera or Louis Royale. From heavy metal. He brings that vibe with him. And he's done work for a variety of companies. Currently doing work for Dynamite Comics. He's drawing, Vampirilla variant covers for Dynamite right now. He's done work with Action Lab Comics doing Zombie Tramp and Dollface covers. He's done work for Zenescope, and he's been with Nyobi since 2016. And he's also, by the way, just to plug him for a second, got a brand new art book out now on Kickstarter, which also has Nyobi imagery in it. So I would recommend everyone go and pick up a beautiful art book. But yeah, he did this cover, man. Phenomenal cover. We actually on the campaign have 2 pieces of original art. His first rough sketch of this, and then another drawing he did, which is the more refined version. And they're both sold now, so they're both gone.
Oh, that's the second best comment.
Sarah, of the night. Yeah, she's the Nyobi cheerleader. I gotta say, brother. You know what I mean?
That's a perfect comment. That is a perfect comment in so many ways.
Now, and this is also going to be in foil. Like a couple of these covers you show are going to be also in foil. And I think, when you see like black and silver like that, I think that's going to really shine on a foil cover,
Yeah, and that's something that's also very cool, is that you're doing foil stuff and you're doing some other cool special stuff with covers. And I think that also adds a different element to it as well.
I'll tell you, it's the most scariest thing I've ever done. Oh, yeah, here we go. Chris Enoch. So Chris Enoch is...
he's another Zenescope guy in a lot of ways that does a bunch of covers for Zenescope.
Covers for Lady Death. He does a few things with the indies. He recently worked on Minx with Molly Schofield, which is like a badass cyberpunk book. But now he's also got a contract with Image Comics, and he's doing a bunch of covers now for Image. So we got him right before Image got their hooks in them.
So that's something that's very, very cool. Where it's
now this one took a long time to get done. Chris Enoch's a very busy man. He had a lot of things on the go, but he delivered. We actually were able to put this photo up on the Kickstarter maybe 4 or 5 days ago. We had like his pencil drawing first, right? Work in progress. Then we got the inked version like a week later, work in progress, and then we finally got the colored version. And yeah, it's dynamite, man. And this again is going to be in foil, and hopefully it looks sharp.
And also just the background. I don't know. I'm a big Dawn Teague fan, and she's been on twice, and she's been on with JP Roth, and she has a Cyberpunk Dorothy cover from Zenescope. And the reason why I bring it up is that the background on that is phenomenal, and I think that the background on this is also a phenomenal. It's one of the best parts of this cover is that I feel like I'm in that city, if that makes any sense.
Well, I can tell you Dawn Teague didn't do that. That'd be cool if she did. I've had Dawn Teague drawn Nyobi before, but it was just like
the reason why I bring this up is that it's very cool when Chris did this cover, and that you feel like you're in this city with the cover, because your other covers, I don't feel like I'm in this city. Like, I feel like I know that image, and like I feel like that city is inviting me in when I'm looking at it, and it's a very cool effect when it's done on a cover.
Yeah, well, we did a couple of city covers. Justin Hunt's is also a city cover, but his is a lot different style. Even the Matthew Walden is a city cover, but it's a city cover where she's sort of down in the alley on street level, right? This is more of like almost like a rooftop sort of scene. You know what I mean?
It's just a very inviting city cover, and it just has like a connection where I think everybody knows that scene, and it's really nice because people can resonate with it, and it's going to look awesome in a foil.
Yeah. So 5 of them are going to be foils, but there'll also be like regular editions of them as well.
And then obviously this is sort of like the last one, and this is just classic Nyobi.
So this is done by a beautiful woman, equally as gorgeous as her art, named Courtney Rose Dameron, and she's a newcomer on the scene essentially. Like, she may have been around for a couple of years, but I mean, she's only really starting to make the circles now, in the sense of like she did some covers for, again, Totally Rad Comics with Jim Noble. She's done work now with Scorpiana, with CB Zane, Scorpiana 3, she was like, again, another artist that came to me. We didn't seek her out. She's like, when do I get to draw an Nyobi? It's like, well, when do you? I said, okay. I said, I didn't know you were interested. We'll work it out. And she drew this, and then Dan Olvera, who you're gonna hear his name a lot from me, did the colors. He did the whole graffiti background and the colors, and he really made this shine.
And then obviously she's doing great, and her thing now is it's almost like a rose cover is how it's being labeled out there, and it's going to be named.
I like that. We got a rose cover. I never heard that before. That's great.
I think CB Zane sort of dropped that with Scorpiana on it.
Well, I mean, they have a lot of roses in the background on that cover. She spent like hours and hours and hours drawing hundreds and hundreds of these roses on the background of that cover. And that's kind of what. So I mean, it's twofold. She drew a lot of roses, and of course, roses in her name, right? So
I think CB Zane labeled it as like a rose and skull cover, which is really funny, and then it's just a perfect stone in so many ways.
Yeah, so I think she's going to be one of these people that's you're going to see a lot of growth, and I think you're going to see a lot from her next year. I think she's going to be a very busy artist,
The way I view it is that she is going to be like Senku Manaki and Keith Garvey, and there's a few others that are the next class that are coming up, and so she's probably going to be in that next class range.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Keith Garvey, because he's the guy I already made an overture to. He definitely expressed interest in doing Nyobi, so hopefully on the next Nyobi project you'll see a Keith Garvey cover,
And so it's getting very interesting where people are popping up, and then look at all these people. They're now making ventures into mainstream, and I've been saying this where a bunch of indie, they all get pulled out of indie sooner or later, and it's occurring, and it's super interesting. But obviously I do want to talk about the add-ons, and I want to go through this really quickly, because obviously this is that third print, I think, right?
Third printing, yes. That was done by the original cover artist, a local guy here in small town, nowhere, Canada. But locally, he's like the most popular artist in town. And he's awesome. He's always changing up his style. I asked him to come back. I said, I'm going to be redoing our book that we did together way back in the day. Do you want to be a part of it? You want to put a cover on it? And he was all for it. We actually had a deal. The deal was, he was setting up a Kickstarter for his art book. Like, he does a lot of characters and pet artwork on the side and makes oodles of money doing it. And he said, I want to do a Kickstarter for my book, but I don't know how to do a Kickstarter. I don't know how to put together. I don't know nothing. I said, I'll tell you what, you draw me the cover. I'll come to your house and I'll put together your Kickstarter, right? I'll show you how it works. I'll build the fucking framework for you, and then you can spice it up and pretty it up later. And so I went to his house and I spent 2 or 3 hours going over everything he wanted in his Kickstarter and help him put it together. And then, he went in there later and added things in, and away we go,
And then obviously there's some combo packs of stuff
right.
in there.
So that's, so those are the birthright issues. So there's the cover A's and cover B's. Cover B's were Steph Wilson. Cover A's are Samir Sameo. So I have a few of these left over. So, why not offer them as add-ons and see if I can't get those out of the box and into people's hands, you know?
And then there's obviously the blank stuff because maybe you want, your favorite artist to do something that hasn't worked on Nyobi yet. And so that's an option.
Well, I'll tell you, this is how it started, though, because I would bring blank covers to these conventions like I told you about, right? And they weren't Nyobi blanks at the time, but I would still have them draw Nyobi on them, right? And then, then I started making my own blanks for that very purpose, bringing them to conventions, get personal artwork. I got about 100 of these. And if I, had them beside me or ready, I would show you some of the best ones. But, I have to go dig from them. So it won't be tonight, but.
And then obviously this is something that's always cool because I love blank covers and I love, doing something, going to an artist and getting a commission and say, hey,
well, the other thing is I get artists messaging me for them, though. Like, hey, do you got any Nyobi blanks? You know what I mean? Because they want to either draw on them themselves or they want to bring them to shows and, you know what I mean? That sort of stuff. And
so it's something very, very cool in that regard. And then obviously this cover, too.
So that is Birthright number 2. That's a variant cover by Matt Walden, colored by Dan O'Bara. And that is, of course, the angelic character Ariel, who opposes Nyobi in Birthright.
And then
hero, you decide.
And then obviously this is the Paul Green cover, and then this is his latest cover that he released, and this is very similar.
Okay, go back. I want to see mine again. Yeah, no, they're two different things.
They're slightly similar though.
No, well, I mean, similar how? I mean, Ariel is on her side. She's sitting on a cloud on her knees. Show me this other one. She's standing up.
It's the same.
The pose is completely different. I mean, what's similar is, yes, they both have wings, and yes, there's both the a cloudy background behind them, sort of thing. Well, not even really, because Paul Green's is more like a moonlit sky. Where this
both Paul Green, so it's.
Well, I mean, Paul Green's going to look similar in many ways to all his other covers, though. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't. That would not be one I would look at and go, "That's a copy." You know what I mean?
But I just connected it immediately because I'm just
but I want the Hellchild cover. I mean, that's one of the better Zenoscope books. And the other one that I really like is Belle. Their superhero chick.
That is true. That is true. And then obviously you also have something cool going on with CB Zane.
They approached me. Wasn't CB Zane's idea. This was Michael Shoemaker's idea, the writer of Scorpiona. And he said, I want to do, something crossover with you. I think it'd be really cool. And I said, okay, what did you have in mind? He said, well, maybe like a trading card or something. I said, yeah, that'd be badass. So this is two different art styles. This is Fernando Cord of Mary Machine Gun, who drew Nyobi. So Max DeVille's Mary Machine Gun. And then Scorpiona, of course, is drawn by CB Zane. So and then, he just threw in the dice. Because what you're seeing there in that Nyobi cover is another this card. Half of this is a J. Scott Campbell homage to Mary Jane, sitting there with her, sitting on a cushion, but we replaced it with the dice and, still with the holes in the jeans and all that. As Spider-Man is sort of like, flying out the window kind of idea. Well, not that exact cover, but it's one of those covers in that series. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so obviously even talking about this, because one of the things that's nice about this is that you have to back both projects, and it's very important.
Well, that's the misconception, because that's not the way I understood it. So, I mean, I have to actually talk to those guys, because I think that's what they've been saying, but that was not the way I understood it. I've been telling everyone, you just get this card for free if you back Nyobi.
So I'm not too sure, so I don't want to create contention here.
I don't know. No one is sure. That's the thing. I mean, I have to message them and see what you've been telling people, because I've been telling people something different,
But even this idea that when you do cross promotion, you don't want to hurt one project or the other project, and it's very much you want to make it that obviously you're promoting both projects, and it can be tricky sometimes because if you go in and do something, even with the characters as well, it's very, very important to know how to do that the right way. And this tends to.
You got royalty in your chat.
I got what?
Royalty. Guest of honor. Samuel William Quinton of 47 Furious Tales has now graced us with his presence. You know that book, don't you?
Yeah, I know that book. We're doing something in October, so I don't want to go too much into the details with it because I don't know what I can say yet, but something's coming with me and him.
Good. Yeah.
But I can't talk too much about it because we got to work it out a little bit.
Listen, I mean, the thing is, I mean, this is almost a good segue because this man, has offered every Nyobi backer digital copy of issue 1 of 47 Freest Tales. So at the end of the campaign, everyone's getting a download code. You go to Drive Through Comics and you'll be able to get this man's first issue on digital for free.
So there's a lot of cool stuff coming, and then there's just a bunch of stretch goals that are unlocked at this point, and there's more to come. And so obviously, there's a lot of merit with stretch goals, and so I kind of want to talk a little bit about that because I don't know how you feel about stretch goals, but when I back an indie comic project, I get really pissed really quickly when the stretch goals are minimal and that there's not bonuses. And I'm taking a risk on your book, especially if it's the first time and it's an issue 1. And I want stretch goals that I feel reward me for taking a risk and that show that you appreciate me as a backer. And at least you have a bunch of them that are out there that are helpful, such as, bookmarks and stickers and a trading card. And I think, soon enough, probably a second trading card is going to be unlocked and possibly a coaster is going to be unlocked.
Coaster is like almost unlocked now. We're like a couple hundred away from the coaster. The last one to unlock will be the Sybil trading card, which is currently being colored by Phil Leon, who's done a lot of work on various indie projects. The stretch goals are interesting because I'm two ways on stretch goals. When I first got into buying people's books, I was all about, look at all these cool stickers and bookmarks and stuff. Then I ended up having 2 boxes full of them, and I'm like, what do I do with all this stuff? I have too much of this stuff. So I personally don't care about stretch goals that much anymore because after you back 10 Lady Death books, you have all the stretch goals you need for life because he just gives you that much. But I understand that people want them. I understand that they're cool to get, especially like if you only back once in a while. Like I back in so many projects that like I literally have 2 boxes full of tchotchkes,
So for me, it's not so much the item itself. It's the fact that you're even thinking about saying, hey, how can I add value and make my project stand out even more so than the art? Because at this point, there's legitly 15 projects that I can back and I need to fill my September slot. And it's like I need to run a competition to who gets my pledge in September for $30 because and it's a real issue. And because at this point, I don't know how to decide because they're all the same. And so what determines the difference for me, and it might sound artificial, is, okay, what stretch goals are you offering? Because that's going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah, that doesn't affect me. I'm a little different. I, just say, what is the coolest looking book that has the hottest looking chick?
No,
you know what I mean?
The problem is that if there's 3 projects that are all the same, how do I differentiate? And then I go into saying, okay, who's the artist? Who's behind the project? How have they delivered in the past?
I would answer that question by saying if you went into a comic book shop and you saw all 3 on the shelf and you only have enough money for one, how do you differentiate?
I cry and then I buy all 3. And then I figure
well, let's say you can't have the money though, right? Let's say the book's $10.
I'm the worst to answer this question. No, probably what I'll do is I'll probably just flip a coin at that point. Because if they're all the same and they're all equal, I'll flip a coin. Or what I've done before is I've asked people in the shop, I say, hey, what book do you like? The most. And we should have approached somebody in the shop and said, hey, what's your opinion on this? Or I'll ask if my mom is there with me. I'll say, hey, mom, what book do you like? And whenever
I answer it, what's more likely to go up?
But sometimes I don't know the answer to that question. Sometimes I know.
That's where the speculation and the gambling comes into play, though, sir. I mean, if you're a comic book collector, sometimes you're going to speculate on something, and it's going to pay off, or it's not. You know what I mean?
Fair enough on that point. But again, sometimes I just ask because if there's 2 covers, and I'm like, okay, which is going which way, and I can't figure it out. Sometimes I have a sense, sometimes I don't. But with Kickstarter, I mean, I found a way that differentiates very quickly because I don't want to worry too much about it, especially because it happens very rarely, though, that I'm actually torn. It happens maybe once a year, which is not that bad, over 20 projects. So it's not a horrendous problem for me, but I needed a way to divide. But anyway.
Well, Sarah's got a question I'm going to answer first. She says, noob question. That's fine. No problem being a noob. She says, if a project doesn't reach funding, how do people who pledge get what they ordered? The simple answer is they usually don't. The project doesn't fund, it doesn't fund. You know, in Kickstarter's eyes, if the project doesn't fund, they assume the book is not getting made and no one gets charged. So you're not going to receive anything because you were never charged for anything. Now, Indiegogo works a little differently because Indiegogo claims your money up front where Kickstarter doesn't. And if a project doesn't fund on Indiegogo and they don't have flexible funding, then Indiegogo has to go through the process of refunding you. Now, if a person has flexible funding, which means they get to make whatever they make regardless of what they put as the goal, they're going to get that money, and you got to hope and pray they got enough money to get that job done and get you your book.
And even to go further into this, because I have waited on projects and I've been burned on Kickstarters that haven't delivered. And, you know, it took, you know, a year and a half for something to come my way. And even if, because Kickstarter doesn't get involved in policing, where if somebody takes the money and runs, you know, Kickstarter doesn't get involved, I think 95% of the time.
Well, it's a big warning right on their site. You know, rewards are not guaranteed. They flat out tell you that.
And so it's a big issue with that, and it's happened a lot less, but it's also the idea that expected times as well are not guaranteed either, where everybody in 2020 was late on their project, and understandably so because of COVID. And
yeah, we can't blame it all on COVID. I mean, we can say some of it's COVID with certain people, but we can also just say laziness is a factor. Overspending their money is a factor. Like underestimating their shipping costs is a factor. You know, like there's many factors. You can throw COVID in there for sure, but I just love how everyone just goes to COVID as like their excuse. You know what I mean?
So you know what's happening today in the U.S. or happened today, right?
Yeah, shipping rates went up.
Exactly, and that's a big thing too, in which that, you know, it might go up 50 cents or $1, but that can cut significantly into your. When
you're delivering 300 to 400 packages and you're paying an extra $1 on every one, and not only that, but you're paying an extra $1 American and you're Canadian, which to me is an extra $1.25. Yeah, man, it all builds up, you know.
And also, it's the idea, you know, obviously my sponsor, you know, it's a 5% discount, and you might say, oh, it's only 5%. 5% can make a huge difference.
Well, I'll tell you, you're right. And not to undercut your sponsor, but, you know, Comics Wellspring, you know, also offers that, and we have utilized it where if you, and the reason why, you know, you brought up the stretch goals, and I'll just say this, the reason why I selected those particular stretch goals, stickers, cards, and coasters, is because that's what Comics Wellspring makes, right? So they're now being a company that says, hey, not only will we print your comic, but we'll make your tchotchkes for you. And so they have a list of tchotchkes you can get to them. So now I can get everything, right, coming to me in one bundle, as opposed to me having to go through the sticker mule for this, or, you know, Staples for that, and a printing company for this. You know what I mean? I get it all now shipped to me. And not only that, if you put their little banner at the bottom of your Kickstarter, you get 15% off your entire order.
No, it's important, and again, I've said this to other people. People have contacted me outside the show. I said, look, go with whoever is cheapest for you. I would like my sponsor to do well, but I also understand that, you know, you might choose certain companies for different reasons, and it's also, you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's what's best for your business.
Well, I'll tell you, as far as the sponsor goes, when I decided on comic book printing company, there were two finalists. It was Mix'em and it was Wellspring, right? I happened to go with Wellspring, but that's not put down Mix'em at all. Because it could have easily just been them, you know.
And look, I mean, it's to everybody. It's also there's a variety of other factors as well, where you could have had a miserable experience with Comics Wellspring. You could have had a great experience with Mix'em your first route, or you might have a project that Mix'em might be a better suit for you. And, you know, there's no loyalty in comics, everybody. So if you produce 3 books and they're 3 different series, you know, you could have a lot of, you know, fun stuff going on. You could use different things, as well as, look, you know, comic printers, they go in and out of style sometimes, and sometimes they drop the ball, and sometimes they pick up the ball. And it's happening with a lot of printers right now. A lot of people are not happy with their printers. And it's not that their printer messed up a book the last round and looking for a new printer, and they're willing to try somebody else. and that's happening, and then maybe they're not happy with that printer either. So it's very, very interesting. But again, I'm not a printing expert. I do not want to be in this segment and this sector. I am fortunate enough that I'm not a comic creator at this point.
I was going to ask you that, because you ask a lot of questions that would come from someone who might be interested in one day putting together a book. You know what I mean?
I'm writing something, but I don't know where it's going at this point, because it's sort of in a very, very rough draft stage.
Well, you know what? That's how we all begin, though. I didn't even seek an artist until Nyobi #1 was completely written. I had a binder with my script in it that I could just bring around and show to people.
But again, I'm fully topped off with this project, with comic book investing, possibly starting a job in like 2 weeks. So I am not adding anything more. Obviously, legitimately 12 days ago, I didn't have a sponsor, and this show wasn't going to make it to season 3. So clearly, I'm fully maxed out with everything that's going on in my world. That if I'm writing a comic on the side and I'm able to write a page a week, at best, that's where I'm at, and I'm not going to kill myself over it right now until things calm down.
I'll tell you, everyone's got their little 9-to-5 job, but it's amazing now how everyone has their side gig, right? For me, it's Nyobi. For you, it might be eBay, or working with Sam Quinton. You know what I mean? But everyone is developing a side gig, and everyone is finding other ways, to get the creativity out there, to make a little bit of money maybe while doing it too. It's a cool time. I mean, the internet really has brought forth a lot of possibilities. It's brought a lot of grief, but it's also brought a lot of opportunities. Because if it wasn't for the internet, there'd be no Nyobi. And I'm old enough to remember a time before the internet. I'm old enough to remember a time before debit cards and ATM machines.
And so obviously that's something that I'm super, super interested in actually asking you, because obviously I think a lot of people know your experience and a lot of stuff that's happened to you. And I'm obviously happy to have you on my show, and some people might not be, and I have friends who some of them like you and some of them don't, and it's everybody can have their opinion. But where do you think cons are going? Because you've had great experiences at cons, and you've had bad experiences at cons.
I had one bad experience, but that one bad experience turned out to be the catalyst of experiences.
That one bad experience made you more money than you could possibly ever imagine.
To take a line right out of Star Wars, yeah. It made me more powerful. Strike me down, and I should become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. That's exactly what they did. And I won't be surprised if they come crawling back and ask me to be a part of their show now that I'm being published, and I get to tell them no.
So you shouldn't tell them no. You should make them pay double.
They wouldn't pay me. Are you crazy? They never paid me before, but they would. I'm sure they would love to have local hometown boy who's now being published and now has a popular Kickstarter on the go after a little small show. But they were jerks enough to ban me for something stupid, and said it was a ban for life, and so I'm going to hold them to it.
But where do you think they're going? Because obviously the world is fucked up. Let's just put it bluntly.
Sure.
And things aren't getting better.
I think they're going to be, they were seasonal before, but they're going to be even more seasonal now. As long as COVID's around, we're going to have, a variety of ups and downs, where things are going to look like they're going to reopen, things are going to look like they're going to close. In the United States, every single state's different with different sets of laws and how they're going to do things. So depending on where you live in the states, might depend on your availability to conventions. If you're living in like Texas or Florida or something, there might be more cons open for you. But if you're living in California or New York, maybe not so much. So I don't think anything's ever truly going to go back to say like the way it was in 2017 or 2018 until we've eradicated COVID.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I mean, I'm a strong believer, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm a big part of the great digitalization pivot. And I believe that is the future, where I have done more networking, and I used to do fan panels at cons, and I've never gotten a Facebook fan. I've never gotten a social media follow. I've never made money, presenting. I have had people say, oh man, that was great. I've never gotten a client off of that. And what I do, I've never sold a book. because of it. But now that I'm online and I'm doing 4 or 5 interviews a week, and I have an email list and I have a variety of other things, I obviously have done more networking. I've gained more exposure with almost probably about 60% less work in a lot of ways, and spending a lot less money. And so I don't know if I'm ever going to ever want to go back to a convention, because I don't see right now doing this an upside. And so I'm curious how you feel about that, because
I would probably go to a con, just not that con. Any other con that wants to invite me and give me a free table, I will certainly consider that offer, and if I can make the trek, I will. But at the same time, I want to make sure that that it's safe to go. That I'm not going to go somewhere and pick up a deadly disease and die. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm going to go to something. I'm going to go to something full-fledged. I don't want to go to something where we have to social distance. I don't want to go to something where we all have to wear masks. I mean, if that's going to be the case, I'd just rather not go. I'd rather sit at home and sell my book and make my money. But if it's a case of like, hey, it's a safe environment, COVID's gone, or we all build herd immunity to it, or whatever, everyone's vaccinated, however that's going to work, then I would love to, but I'm not going to go to a show where it's half a show. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, I feel you on that. I mean, personally, I don't want to go present a panel and only 100 people are allowed in when normally 250 would be allowed in, because even the potential of me, if I'm to ever come back, I want to speak to as many people as possible. I also want a full room. I don't want a half-empty room if I'm doing a top-notch panel and I've worked 30 hours on it. Like I'm the same way, and so obviously I don't know when I'm going to come back, if I ever do, but that I feel the same way, where it's not even so much the mask thing. That doesn't bother me. It's the capacity that's there, because I think that's another issue too, where if a con can normally hold 50,000 people and they cut it down to 20,000 people, that significantly, the people who come to India, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's already cut enough down, and if you eliminate a huge chunk of people, that further cuts down who could potentially buy your book.
Well, of course. I mean, half the people are not there. Well, that's half the people that you don't even have the opportunity to walk by and see what you're offering,
And so obviously, that's something that I look at very much. So obviously, there's a lot. I don't think we were too controversial.
I'm not a fan of these online cons either, though, dude. I've seen them happen. I've seen people try them. I've took a part in a couple of them. For me, they kind of sucked. They're sort of fun to watch in the middle of the night when you're bored at work and you want to watch a panel from San Diego Comic-Con, But, generally, when I see them, they're not live. It's after the fact. I'm not that big into it that I'm going to glue myself to my screen for an 8 o'clock live show. You know what I mean?
I'm not a fan of them either. I'm not a fan of them either. I'm a fan of when Zenescope does something because I'm buying merch. But right. That's different, in which that it's the idea that if
you're there for business purely,
But I'm also a fan. There's certain personal books that I buy because I'm a collector too, and it's just the easiest way how to get it. Okay, so if somebody is selling their variant on their Facebook live show on Sunday night, I'm there because I want to buy their product, and if this is how they want to sell me their product, that's different than me listening to a creator panel from San Diego at 7 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, and I'm on the East Coast. Well,
that's just it, Let's see here. William says he is a side gig. It's true. William does this full time.
I'm sure we're gonna have a great conversation, me and Sam. So I'm sure.
Sam's a great dude to have on. Sam's full of knowledge. Like, Sam's on my show seemingly every week. So
again, I can't talk too much about it. Because we got to work it out. But
I'd be like, give Sam the link right now. Bring him on, man. You know what I mean? Like,
it's gonna be big. But I don't want to drive too much into it, because I want it to be a little bit of a shock, and also I don't want to push anything while he's quarantining and recovering and being safe from what's going on in his life. So I don't want to put too much stress until we're ready to go.
It's a super spy, right?
So it's going to be a good time, though. I promise everybody, it's going to be really, really exciting what we're going to be doing, and a bunch of people, I think, are going to be very happy with it. So having said that, obviously I don't want to keep you here all night. There's a million things that we could talk about. Hopefully we were not too controversial. And and I'll just add that to because it's probably a really good way to.
Here's where it's at, folks. We are at Tales of the Tape says we're at 249 sexy backers strong. I would love to see one more backer just like right now. Let's bring us to an even 250, like 50 cent. You know what I'm saying? We have over 12 days left to go. It's 12 days plus a few hours. We're at 17,084 Canadian duck bucks, which probably puts us at about 13 grand and change American. So yeah. This is it. This is sort of where we're at. He went over some of the great covers. Sybil, C.B. Zane, Joel Souza, David Fott, Matthew Weldon, Justin Hunt, Luigi Terrell, R.B. Wright, Chris Enoch, Courtney Rose Dameron, the Rose cover. Man, we got preview pages. You want to see what it looks like on the inside. Again, colors by Dan O'Bara, drawn by Juan Antonio Altaveras. We want to make things pop. We want to show things off, We have some great action sequences that you're going to see here in this 35-page book. This is just a taste of things to come. And we're bringing back an old villain from back in the day of Nyobi #2, as you can see there. But we also got 2 new characters coming. So this is going to be like a book, man, that's just going to be full of stuff. There's some of the original art that went for sale that is gone already. Collectors who collect original art, scoop that up right away. You've already gone through all the add-ons and stuff, but I'll also let you know that we talked about late books. By the way, shout out to Sam Quinton's 47 Furious Tales. Everyone's going to get a digital copy of this if you back this book, man. Also, I want to let you know that let's scroll down. Let's go way down. We ship in Gemini mailers. Understand, you're not going to get your stuff in bubble wrap. It's not going to be bent. It's not going to be shipped like a magazine.
Scroll up. Just trust me. Scroll up.
How far up? How far am I going?
All the way to the top. Just scroll up. Trust me.
All the way to the top. Let's look up. Let's look way up. Oh, damn! Now that is a boomer moment. Every time we get a backer, we have a boomer moment.
Am I a boomer? Nope. Am I a boomer? Boom!
For those who don't know what just happened, I am backer 250.
Oh, you're a backer 250. There you go. Andrew Davis, welcome to the Nyobi Club, sir. Backer number 250. That's a milestone number. I mean, that is 250,000. We still have 12 days left to go.
So what cover do you think I picked up?
Well, I could tell you if I was off air. But I'm going to say it's a cross between this or this.
It's neither one of those.
Wow, okay. So then we're probably going to look at that or this.
It's not even that one either.
Oh, my God. Then we're, the next 2 in line is Justin Hunt and Matt Weldon, sir.
It's the 607.
Oh, really? Okay, awesome. I'll tell you, this isn't as popular as I thought it might be. That makes me happy that you picked up this one. It's going to make David Fott happy that you picked up this one. Because like I said, David Fott needs some love, battling COVID, him and his wife, man. So we got to, show David Fott some love, man. Because I can't wait to send David some of the copies of this and, all sorts of good stuff, man.
So now that I'm backer 250, yes. I do want to give you an opportunity to self-promote yourself. So where can people find you? Obviously, we just went through a bunch of the Kickstarter. There's a bunch of options on there. Hopefully, we're going to get a bunch of good stretch goals out of this and my stretch goal package and a variety of other stuff. So where can people back it? I put the link up in the description. Obviously, I think you have a website. Obviously, Rebel Comics, which we didn't get to, and a variety of other things.
Okay, so things are different. I don't really use the Rebel Comics moniker anymore. It's Nyobi Comics now. I still do Rebel Gaming, which is a little bit different thing. But, it's Nyobi Comics now. It's Nyobi Comics pretty much everywhere, right? So it's Nyobi Comics on Twitter. It's Nyobi Comics on Instagram. It's Nyobi Comics on YouTube. It's Nyobi Comics on Facebook. Those are the sort of 4 main platforms I use. If you like Twitch, I'm Rebel Gaming on Twitch. You know what I mean? But, I mean, that's essentially where I can be found. I have a Gumroad store. So gumroad.com, Nyobi Comics. Right now, we only have digital goods up there. I did have physical stuff. I have to sort of like restock the store. And then I have the eBay store, which I believe is also Nyobi Comics, but I don't really have anything up there right now. I don't think so. But every now and then I post some stuff up on the eBay store and see what happens. Since I had an outflip Flipper, now Flipper has gotten me into being an eBayer. You know what I mean? So now every now and then I'll throw something up on eBay and see if I can make a couple of shekels. So. And sometimes it's not even my own stuff. Like I sold Black #1 on there for like $25. That was like a Boom Studios comic or something. So every now and then I might toss something up out of my personal collection that just either doesn't interest me anymore, or stuff I'm downsizing or whatever.
And obviously, what I've been saying and I'm going to keep saying is you have to support indie. Obviously, I lead by example. You filled my September slot, so for everybody who's upset that I'm not backing your project in September, you could blame Nyobi for that.
Yeah, but this man will actually get his book, though. I mean, this is the thing. We fulfill. We've never been late. We've no one has ever had to wait 2 years for a book or sing a song like "Where's My Book." We never had that happen to us yet. God willing, that will never happen. As you can see here from these posts that I'm showing you, these are people who've gotten their packages, very happy with their buys, with their backing, and showing off their loot.
And so obviously, as I've been saying, what you have to do is obviously you just Google Nyobi Comics and it'll show various sites.
It's crazy. I Googled myself. I never thought I would Google myself, and the next thing you know, it's all this Nyobi stuff that pops. I'm like, oh damn, awesome.
And so obviously that's one thing. And when I talk about supporting indie comics, obviously you got to back Kickstarters. That's first and foremost, because that's what matters, and that's what helps to get projects across the line and get them funded. But even going deeper into that, I get it, money's tight. Everybody's in financially different situations, and I understand that. So if you're in a financially rough situation, the next best thing you can do is share it, like it, share it out, follow people on social media, because that does matter. That goes a huge way. And obviously that's something that is very important at the moment. And if you're backing it as is, you should be sharing it out, because you never know who is checking out what you posted on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Twitch, or even just mentioning it in passing. Also, obviously signing up for email lists and a variety of other things. I am still a fan-supported show just because I have a sponsor. I have Buy Me a Coffee, and so obviously that's my thing. I have an email list. That's another thing to sign up for, because you don't know what's in my email, and that's another thing. And emails are super important at this point. And obviously, there's a million other things, but really you have to support indie content creators in whatever they're doing, because if you like what you see and it's indie, those people rely on your support.
Well, I'm going to add one more thing onto that. Click on my screen. Let's share this screen out for a second. This is going to lead into something that you're saying, but I'm going to top it off with this. You talked about backing Kickstarters because that's what helps brings indie creators across the line. You know what else it does? It helps us get published and noticed by publishers where you can go and buy this comic in your local shop. You know what I mean? Because what you're going to see, folks, is an influx of indie creators who are making the leap from not just being obscure indie that you find on crowdfunding, but to something very viable that you're going to see on your comic book shelf when you walk into your store next time. I am a number. My number is AUG211490. You can go to your comic shop, you give them this number, and this book shows up. It's amazing.
And so obviously it is very, very important. And so you have to support indie, and supporting indie matters. So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
The final word, brother, is thank you for having me on. This is the first time you and I have had a, sort of a conversation, if you will, outside of, just a little bit of typing back and forth. It's cool. I like that you're a heavy hitter. You know what I mean? I appreciate that. You didn't shy away from a few things. I'm much like that when I interview someone myself. I might, toss them a few softballs and then maybe whip a hard ball at them, just to see if they duck. So you went ahead and did that. It was great. No problems. Come back on anytime, and you're more than welcome to jump on Nyobi Comics and Friends if you ever see us live and if you just want to shoot the breeze. You know what I mean?
Whoa. I might take you up on that offer at some point. To make
some people do. Yeah, Samuel Quinton's a guy that takes that offer up. Pete is a guy that takes that offer up. Phil Leon, a variety of other people come through the doors, and we like to hang out with them. We're you talked about Howard Stern earlier. We are the Adult Swim of comic book broadcasting. That's just how it is, folks.
Well, I'm gonna probably take you up on that offer, and it's gonna be a very, very fun time, and then hopefully I won't get too bloodied up in the arena. But
if you ever actually really watch the show, we actually are pretty good, and we give out a lot of knowledge. Like last night, we did a show where a new guy was just new to crowdfunding, wanted to show us crowdfunding campaign, and me and William went through it all with him and told him everything he needed to do to fix. You know what I mean? We dished out some knowledge last night.
And so I think that's super important, and obviously, I'm super excited, and obviously I'm backer 250. My pledge isn't canceled. I want to make that crystal clear to everybody. I'm going to go find $28, which is what it's going to cost me because I'm in the U.S. I put it on a charge card. So obviously, I don't think I could have said it anything else and said it any better. And I believe that is a wrap.
That is a wrap, brother. I thank you very much for having me on. I won't be on any after party. I got to run, but I want to thank you very much for having me on. And I got someone waiting for me. So.
And so I think that's a wrap.
Right on, brother. Go.